Welcome back. All right, let's talk about this expansion. I want to say first and foremost, the idea of baseball, there is a bit of irony and humor to this. And it's not lost on me that probably the biggest cog behind Sacramento's push for expansion, as was the biggest cog in the push for the Kings to stay in Sacramento, is the mayor. It's not lost on me
different mayors?
Different mayors. The same mayor that was one of 2 no votes on the arena is also the biggest cog in pushing, or certainly top 2, top 3, in trying to bring expansion baseball to Sacramento. Now, that's not necessarily, look, you can take that however you want. You can say, oh, well, you weren't there for the Kings. Or you could say, hey, you know what? He's taking each individual, whatever, and
case by case.
Yeah, whatever. That's fine. Again, it's kind of ironic. So,
hey, the Kings are here.
The Kings are here, despite. Mm-hmm. So, we're going to have Kevin McCarty on here in the next couple weeks. We spoke a week before last, and they're putting some stuff together. He's going to come on when the big push happens, and we're happy to have him. On the pro side, Jason, one of the things that is made, there's a lot of fuss made when this conversation comes up, is there are no billionaires in Sacramento, dude. Where are you finding ownership? You're going to have to find somebody. I would say the average, if you look it up now, I think the average value of a Major League Baseball team is somewhere around $2.5–2.75 billion. So I would say an expansion fee at a minimum will be $3 billion. At a minimum will be $3 billion.
Yeah, but as a criteria, does that person even remotely have to live here?
No.
Yeah.
At all. That's my point.
Okay.
The easiest part of expansion, the easiest part of this, and I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easy, is finding an owner. Mm-hmm. You're going to find an owner. There are one of the.
That's a great exclusive company.
Very exclusive, very limited,
very bragging rights-esque.
And I can't even. I'd really love to see
a baseball team.
You're right. It's not an NFL team, and I would say the NBA is the most glamorous of them all. The NBA is generally for the owners that want to be seen and heard and mingle with the dingles and all that stuff. NFL, you're going to make a ton of money off of that, and there's glamour there too. Baseball, not so much.
Yeah, like they show you in the NFL in your box.
Yeah,
right up there, and NBA generally, you're
right down there, sitting next to the celebrities.
Baseball owners.
They're in Big Mac land in St. Louis getting free popcorn. Yeah, they're doing that. You're not gonna have a problem finding an owner. What they will most likely do, and I'll stop right now and say, because I just said I spoke with McCarty a couple weeks. This is not me with inside knowledge. I'm just guessing at this point now. I don't want to tie the two together. I think you're going to find your whale, if you will, but then there will be a local contingent that local people
that are supporting the cause.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think the total project, if you take into account expansion at $3 billion, which I think is a fair guess, and if anything would be a little more, but I think $3 billion is conservative. You're probably outdoor stadiums don't cost as much as arenas, we know that, but you're talking probably $750 million for a stadium. So now you're looking at just under $4 billion.
I don't know. I think it might be $1 billion now. Especially the A's, that's $2 billion.
But that's also in Vegas on the Strip. And the reason I bring that up is that I've heard that there are some fairly creative loopholes, if you will, with that land in West Sacramento, which is where almost certainly the stadium would be. There are some pretty creative funding ideas there that would help. They already have control, assuming they would go on the Rayleigh Field area. They have control of that. I think I always want to say DFW, but Larry Kelly and his son Dalton own a lot of that land as well, and I know that they all come to a deal. Anyways, their site control wouldn't be an issue. I'm not trying to get too boring here, but this is the nuts and bolts. I think it really, honestly, like if I were to say, okay, I think you're going to find ownership. I think you'll probably figure out a way to do the stadium. Like I'm, and I don't mean to make it sound like that's easy, but let's just throw that to the side and say you got it, which is far from a done deal. I don't know how baseball approves this. I just don't. Salt Lake City, which just got a hockey team, they have a basketball team. They're of the markets available, they're a pretty decent sized market. They've got $900 million already set aside for a stadium, and they've got ownership in place. And there's
why would baseball say no here?
Well, my biggest thing with baseball saying no here is you're going back to having a fifth team in California. 5 teams in one. I understand California's huge. I also think Charles Johnson and the Giants hold a lot of sway. I love my Giants. I can't stand ownership. I think they screwed the A's. I have no problem talking about that. I don't like Charles Johnson. I don't like it. I wish to hell he'd sell the team. And I think they got a lot of sway. And this isn't a shot at A's fans. This is just a fact. This has always been a Giants town. And if you're an A's fan in 89, I'm not saying there aren't a lot of A's. This has always been a Giants town. That is reflected in ratings. That is reflected on TV and radio, in every possible measurement that we've looked at that's ever been out there. There are significantly more Giants fans than there are A's fans here. The 209's pretty evenly split, but Sacramento and the greater Sacramento area, no way. That's the Giants want that to be their that they consider Sacramento their territory. So if you have a choice between going to Salt Lake City, which has nothing around it, they will absolutely own that entire area where you already have the money situated. And then the other one's Portland. It's fairly understood, not as much as Seattle and Las Vegas in the NBA, but Nashville seems to be the front runner for the other expansion team, so leave that alone. It's going to be somewhere in that area. They're going to do one out there and one, west of the Mississippi. And it comes down to Portland, Salt Lake City, and then I would say Sacramento are probably your big 3. I could see Sacramento winning over Portland. I could, because Portland's got Seattle right there, and, a few hours away, and it's Portland, and Sacramento's a bigger town than Portland. I have a really hard time believing that baseball would approve Sacramento as a 5th market in California, competing now with the Giants. The last thing I would say is one of the things that's being floated out there that really tingles my spider sense is that one of the things that Major League Baseball is really looking at when it comes to considering Sacramento for expansion is how much Sacramento is supporting the A's.
Which I think is crazy.
I think it's absolute trash. Because I would then say to Rob Manfred, I would say, hey, I'll tell you what. I'll make you a deal. If the Athletics are here this year and next year, and they sell out every single game, you guarantee us expansion. And you will sell out every single game. You will absolutely sell out every. Give us a guarantee. Because what it sounds like to me is you're just trying to line John Fisher's pockets. And that sounds like it's a cash grab.
Right.
I need baseball is dirty, dude. They're not above that. But we'll have Kevin McCarty on at some point. He's going to outline that. I'm going to talk to him about that. Like, is it a real thing? Because baseball won't comment on it. But apparently before Manfred retires in 2029, he wants to pick the expansion clubs. Do you look at it as having a shot?
Here?
Yeah.
Small one, but yeah. I mean, I could see them wanting to be in California. I'm worried about the Giants, to your point, like their potential of doing whatever they can to harm that. But really, to me, it's more of the issue of can they get the funding to build a stadium? Can they get that whale that you're talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, I think baseball would be supported here, probably even more so, obviously, with a brand new stadium and a new team than compared to kind of how this has happened with the A's. But I don't know. Got to get all the steps to line up first.
We're going to have a lot more to talk about that in the coming weeks and months, and especially probably over the summer. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll go around the NBA. Kings host. Do they host the Suns tonight?
They do.
I don't.
Tonight.
It's a